Hey, good evening. Welcome to Foreigner in the Philippines. Well, following the, I suppose you could call it guidance or advice video that I did about whether you should risk everything. There also, in order to come to the Philippines, that is, and that interested quite a few with whom it resonated. That it answered some of the questions that they had about coming to live in a strange country. Now, you got to understand that you are coming to live in a strange country, strange to you. Now, the problem, if you're coming from, depending on where you come from, there are certain stereotypical characteristics which are common to the different countries. If you go to America, people speak louder than if you go to England, and certainly if you go to if you go to China or you go to Japan, people will be less likely to tell you how well they can do something. So if you're coming from America, let me give you an example. In America, not very long ago, when I was there, let's say in the last 10 years, I read that the universities who were receiving Chinese students, now I know that this is a hot subject at the moment, that China is going to America and all of that, but just cast your mind back a few years, just for the sake of the example. And they had to have counselors who would coach the Chinese students to be more, shall we say, confident, to be more willing to express the true level of whatever their particular talent was. Now, I know that if in the UK, if you behaved in the UK when you applied for a job, the same as if you behaved when applying for a job in America, you simply wouldn't get the job. In the UK, they would tend, if they were asked, well, these are the parameters that you'll be required to work within. These are the skills that we hope that you have. What's your viewpoint? Do you think that you could do this kind of work? Now, if it was in the UK, I'm going to say that in my experience, people would, the applicant would say yes, and his terminology would be think. Yes, I believe. In other words, there would still be an element there within his response of some humility. Now, call it prejudice or bias, but when I was in America, I thought that compared to the way that things were in the UK, humility was a four-letter word. That was my little attempt at a joke, you see. So pause for your hysterical laughter. Because when you apply for a job in, say, America, you have to go in there and say, not only can you do the job, but you are probably, not even probably, you are the best for the job. And they had to teach Chinese students who would be much more humble and who would regard it as being extremely arrogant to suggest that they would be the best for the job. And so they wouldn't do that on an interview, and so they probably would fail because it would be regarded as no confidence. Now, when I went to America in 1992, I went to America, and I remember being in the bank and trying to set up something in the bank, and I had my grown daughter who who at the time was certainly late 20s, she got annoyed at me because I wasn't speaking loud enough. Can you see? So here's the comparison to taking your own culture as being set, that's the way it should be, and then viewing other people's cultures and the way that they are as being somehow lacking. Well, if you apply that to coming over to America, that's coming over from, say, America to the Philippines, even from the UK to the Philippines, coming from Germany. We had the example very recently where we had several videos of Alfred. Now, Alfred is German, so we've got that, and we've got our friend Tracy came over, was from Australia. So all of these different cultures are coming over here. They come over within a frame of reference of their own way of doing things, and they can get quite a shock because things are not done here, even though all of the appearances are that everything's the same. You'll find that the average Filipino can actually understand much more of what you're saying, even though he may say that he doesn't understand English. Now, as a foreigner, you have to get used to going into a store, say a small store, where there are 2 or 3 young Filipinos, usually women, who are doing the serving, doing the sales. And like if you go into a drugstore, they will usually be young ladies. Certainly if you go into McDonald's or Jollibee or one of the fast food places, they're usually young women, and there you will come up against this intense shyness. Now, it's not based in reality, because actually if you could my take on it is, if they start to get too shy with me, I say, listen, your English is terrific. I wish my Visayan was as good as your English, and I mean it. But you'll need to get used to the fact that they almost don't want to serve you. Now, if that happened on your frame of reference of a foreigner, you would think, well, what's wrong with me? And there's nothing wrong with you. There's a hesitancy, a shyness, a lack of confidence in, say, the ability to speak English. Also, foreigners have created for themselves a reputation of being troublesome, in that they don't accept things in the same way that Filipinos do. Now, I've been in a line, that this is a very common thing. I've been in line at, say, the ATM machine, and somebody will go to the front, talk to the next person in line, and say, do you mind if I go next? Now, any foreigner is going to say, hold on a second, I'm in line too, and I stand to have to wait for another 15 or 20 minutes. Why are you going first? And I've done that myself. But I've also heard other foreigners who get angry at this, and so then there's a scene, and whoever has tried to go first will get extremely embarrassed and will walk away, and the whole thing is quite unpleasant. But when you go into, say, the bank, it has a sign which is on the cashier's desk, and it says, not foreigners, it says retired people, let me see, older people, pregnant people, seniors they call them here. I'm searching for the particular way that they describe the elderly, and it is seniors, and it says seniors have priority. So in fact, you go to the front of, usually they've avoided this embarrassment by putting a special sign up that is a desk that you go to because you're a senior. Now personally, when I went into the bank, it embarrassed me greatly to think that I should go straight to the front of the line. So I made a point of talking to someone who seemed to be in a senior position at the bank, and I explained, look, I know as a senior I'm able to go and no one's going to question that, but quite honestly I'm a little reserved and I'm embarrassed to do that. So can I come to you? And so after that, every time I went in and needed something done, I would go to this lady, and if I had a withdrawal to make, I'd hand her the book and the appropriate withdrawal form, and she would then take that and fill it out and bring it back to me, and I would avoid the embarrassment. Well, Filipinos will be embarrassed by confrontations, and it's not part of their culture or their makeup, and they will submit to many things which are not right in order to keep the peace. Looking at it from my viewpoint, I used to think that that was a bad thing. But wait a minute, why don't you speak up? And I've heard other foreigners say, well, they just put up with anything. You know, whereas the one foreigner that I talked to, something happened at the bank and he started raising his voice, because perhaps there would be a situation in, say, the UK or Australia or America, where if you were not getting the service and the attention that you needed, if you raise your voice, they really don't want that, and it brings people up short and you'll get served. I think they call that the squeaky wheel. So you don't have that in this country, and they are very much different on that. Now this has little offshoots of things which you will not be able to see as making any sense. For instance, if you had asked somebody to do something, and a partner usually, if you had asked them to contact someone or call someone, my favorite easy oversimplified example is, say, a phone call. Did you call Harry? Or did you call the store? Now, if they've not done that, they'll be embarrassed because they haven't done that, and they will seek to avoid any unpleasantness, because, as I said, us foreigners have made for ourselves a reputation of being difficult. In other words, we're likely to say, oh, what the heck, why didn't you call? And we're already touching on being irritable, which would not be acceptable to the Filipino way of doing things, because they're trying to have things go smoothly. You can go in and you can be quite awkward in a place, and they will do everything they can to be nice to you, even though you may not be being very nice yourself. And that's something that you have to take responsibility for and realize that that's the case. So you're going to be seeking to get things done right, and they're going to be seeking to get things done calmly and smoothly, even though they may actually forget you were in as soon as you leave, because they'll have gotten over the situation and they're not going to do anything about it. So there's always that example that might be there. So I always think of it as arrogance. that someone can come to another country and actually think that everyone in that country should behave according to their frame of reference. How can it be? It can't make any sense. And yet, when I used to go on some expat sites when I first got here, I would hear, I would read, I would see comments that were made that were very much on the basis of an arrogant viewpoint which assumed correctness. Now, the one thing that will never change when you come over here, and that is you're a foreigner. So, you can work that any way you want, but you will always be the foreigner. And this is something that I observed as soon as I came over. And depending on where you are, if you find, say, a partner and join her in her community, in her neighborhood, it's very possible that people there are not used to interacting with a foreigner. They actually don't know how to interact, and people get extremely shy and they suffer what Filipinos call a nosebleed. And a nosebleed is a feeling of inadequacy on their ability to speak English. They call it a nosebleed. And they laugh about it. So there are various different characteristics in Filipinos and Filipinas which can be extremely annoying depending on your viewpoint, and extremely appealing. Like, if people are very shy, very friendly, always smiling, that can be it can be very appealing that they're trying to help you and that they're being so nice. You will be impressed by that. But if you're trying to get something done and the person keeps laughing, you will be wondering why they're laughing. Look, sir, this is not funny. Well, they're not laughing because it's funny. They're laughing because of a certain way of dealing with their embarrassment about perceived inadequacies, which may not be real at all. They may be being self-critical about their English, when in actual fact their English is excellent. The other thing is that this whole point about avoiding confrontation will lead to some funny situations. Very often I may say a word, and having said a word to Beth or to anyone, any Filipino, I may have said a particular word and then realize, wait a minute, probably they don't know what that means. And I will say, do you know what heffalump means? And they say, yes. Still not convinced, and I say, what does it mean? And they say, I don't know. And then they laugh. And in the West, usually, when you're trying to get a point over and get some agreement and sensible and a resolution or a solution, if a person is laughing, they're not taking anything seriously. And if you've looked at our videos where I was teaching Beth to drive, she was laughing at everything. She just laughed. I said, listen, this is not something to laugh about. You know, you are in charge of, my point would be, you are in the controls, at the controls of a vehicle which can quickly turn into a lethal weapon and cost some other person their life and yours. So, from my frame of reference, I wanted to stop laughing and to take things seriously. It won't happen because laughing, smiling is a way of handling a situation which is completely foreign no pun intended, to the foreigner. These are all things that you have to learn to cope with in order to understand what is happening. And you have to be here to do that, and I've probably gone on too long already. Beth always complains if I'm waffling on as I do, and giving her a ton of editing to do. So I'll quit now. You need to look at the idea that when you come over here, you have a lot to learn, and you're going to have to assume for a fair period of time that you're getting everything wrong. That's something that's difficult when you come over here with an arrogant way, an arrogant attitude. If you come over here thinking that you're going to get the whole Philippines to change when you set foot on the on Filipino soil, because you are a clever guy or a clever person from another country, it's not going to happen. And maybe there's a certain, well, not maybe, there's a certain hard-headedness which is there to stop that happening, where there's a ridging up of not wanting to be changed, even though that change may be to the benefit of the person that you're trying to do. You might be very good at doing something and try to show another person how to do it. And if that person is already proficient in his own way at doing that particular skill, he won't want to change just for you. Maybe over time, but thinking that you can come in and just logically say, listen, if you do it this way or that way and hold it up that way and the angle of the dangle, and it's not going to happen. Okay, thanks for looking in, and bye for now.